Okay. Okay, let me welcome everybody to the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council Sustainability Committee. Um, the meeting has officially started. We'll take our first item on the agenda. We're going to be, we call the meeting to order, which we did already. Our second one is roll call. Diego, can you take roll call?
Yes. Vincent Montalvo,
Present.
Diego Zapata, present. Melanie Belomo Shiflet, Selena Ortega, Nancy Soto. Okay, cool. That's roll call.
Okay, thank you. And then we're going to go to our third agenda item, which is non-agenda public comments. If anybody in the public wishes to make a comment on an item that is not on the agenda, you can do so by pushing *9, or you can use the little hand icon. Okay, not seeing any public comment. We'll close public comment. And we'll move on to item 4, community and committee member announcements. If there's anybody in the community that wishes to make a public announcement, you have 1 minute. You can do so by pushing *9 if you're on a landline, or you can use the little hand icon. Okay, not seeing any. We're closing public announcement. Is there anybody on the committee that wishes to make an announcement? Okay, not seeing anybody on the committee that wishes to make an announcement. We're going to close item 4, and we're going to move on to item 5, government reports. If there's anybody in the public that has a government report from a government office, just raise your hand. Not seeing any government reports. We'll close item 5 and move to item 6. Okay, this is the discussion and possible action on approving board member Johanna Iraheta to Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council Sustainability Committee. So I sent out an email to her because she responded back to us. Diego, did you receive the email with her interests?
Yes, I did. Yeah, so I don't think she's in the meeting today, but we can go ahead and vote to include her.
Correct. Yeah. So this would be an opportunity where she would have been able to speak, but she's not here. But I think we do need more committee members, and she is a board member. But
Yeah.
I just like the public to know that we do have room for stakeholders from the public that can be on the sustainability committee. So if anybody has any interest, they can reach out to myself, Vincent Montalvo, or to Diego Zapata with the simple email of interest. And then we could also put you on the agenda so that you guys can be part of anybody knows anybody that's interested in sustainability within the district. So on this one, I'm going to move to approve Johanna to become a member of the Lincoln Heights Council Sustainability Committee. Do you second, Diego?
I second.
Okay. So you second. We're going to open it up to public comment on this issue. If there's anybody in the public that wishes to make a comment, you can do so by pushing *9, or you can raise your little hand.
Vincent, Nancy just joined us.
Okay, let me just move over. Okay, here we go. Nancy, are you here?
I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Okay, good. Hi. So right now we're on item 6. It's the approval of Johanna for the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council Sustainability Committee. So right now we're doing public comment, but we didn't have any public comment, so now we'll switch it back to the board. Is there any board comment? She isn't here today, but this vote is to add her onto the Sustainability Committee. So if there's any board discussion or board comment. Okay.
I would, sorry, may I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would really love to see Johanna on this committee. I know she has a long history with living in our open spaces. I know she lived on Flat Top for quite some time. And so she just has a familiarity with our open spaces. And I also know she has a long history working with youth and engaging them in nature-based education. And so I'd love to see her contributions in this committee.
Agreed. Okay, not seeing any more. We'll go for the vote. All in favor? You just got to say aye for Johanna to join the Sustainability Committee. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Motion passes.
All right.
Congratulations to Johanna. I'll make sure to send her an email just to let her know she's part of the Sustainability Committee. Okay, now we have a discussion and possible action on setting Sustainability Committee date and time for all future meetings. I just wanted this to ask everyone, is this an okay day, like on Wednesdays? Is there a better day for all of us to try to meet so we can have a date to at least have quorum? The goal is to have quorum. Not everyone has to meet, but we do have to have quorum. So it's something we can talk about now, or if you guys can look at your schedule so we can come back to a date and time that's comfortable for all of us so we can all meet. Does anybody have any response? Diego, you guys can speak. You guys can unmute yourselves if you're a panelist.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wednesdays going forward works. My only question for you and the rest of the committee is, are we meeting more than once a month?
The goal is probably to meet once a month, but there'll probably be times in the Sustainability Committee, given how the city works, that we might need to squeeze an extra one in, like a special meeting, because they tend, right now with the sustainability items that are popping up in the city, they're coming out in the beginning, in the middle, and towards the end of the month. So it's kind of hard for us to make recommendations if we're not meeting more than once a month, but I'm thinking most months we'll probably meet just once.
All right, cool. Well, the time frame allotted now works perfectly for me.
Okay, so what I'll do with this is we won't take any action on it, but I'll make sure to send an email out to all the committee members and just follow up on everybody to make sure so that we can set a date and time for it. That way we all know, and it's easier for us to set the Zoom and to set a calendar for our website. Okay, does the public, I'll open it up just to public, see if anybody in the public has a comment on this, just in case people might want us to see a different date or time. But if there's anybody in the public that wishes to comment on this item, you can do so by pushing *9, or you can raise the little hand icon. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So I'll close public comment, and then we'll move on to, this is item number 8. Discussion and possible action on retitling the Sustainability Committee. So right now we'll just have a discussion on it, but I know Diego, I saw you on mute right now, so I know you had something to say.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to retitle our committee as the Environmental Justice and Resilience Committee.
Okay, that's yeah, the justice one is the one that I get. Resilience, I'm thinking, I think we all have an understanding of why the sustainability would need to be changed, right? I think some of the background on it is sustainability, well, it's good for most, right? It's not good for low-income communities. Often too much, it's too, what the plans that are being put in place now, they're very expensive for the average person to even afford an electric car, a green building. So in some ways, I think that, like sustainability or like the justice part, I like of it, but I often too see them use that word resilience a lot. And I feel that word has been branded with the word sustainability, but I'm not totally against it. I'm just thinking in my head, something to put out there so that people can understand, even on some of the positions we take. And that justice one really, puts it up front. That's what sometimes in our areas what we're fighting for. But I'm open to it. Nancy, do you have any suggestions?
Vincent, sorry, Melanie just joined as well. She's
Okay,
there.
I'll bring her over. Okay, she's in.
Sorry, everyone.
That's okay, Mel. Nancy?
I agree that it would be great to change the name, but I don't have any suggestions.
Okay. Mel, do you have any? Well, Mel just came in, but we're talking about, we're on item 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
Taking a picture like
I
this
caught up.
and
I don't. I feel I've been against this name, and I like have not thought of another option. But I'm sorry. I wish I had something to offer.
No. And I think that maybe if we continue this item on, I think that it'll give people time to just think about it, right? It's not something that we have to do this month, but I think we should do something by next month. So if that gives Nancy and Melanie a little bit more time to think about, some ideas, like Diego, what was the name you used right now to title it?
Environmental Justice and Resilience Committee.
Yeah, so that's one, but I think our fellow committee members can take that, digest it, and really do some research on it. And let's try to come up with a title that we can change, and then make the recommendation to the general board to change, what the committee would be named now. Its new name, instead of sustainability. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great, and love where that name is going, Diego. That's much more in line with what I'm hoping this committee will be all about.
Okay, so there's no opposition from you, Diego, to wait till next month?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Okay, then, so we'll continue item 8 to next month's agenda. And we'll move on to, let me just give the public an opportunity. If there's anybody in the public that wishes to make a comment on item number 8, which is retitling the Sustainability Committee, you can do so by pushing *9 or raising the little hand icon. Okay, so we're not seeing any, and we'll close item number 8 and continue it to our next general meeting. Our next committee meeting. And now we're item number 8. There's a delay on it. So the person that's doing the presentation, I think, requested a little bit more time. Unless there's someone in the public that was here to do the, that was supposed to do the presentation for item number 9. If you can raise the little yellow hand icon if you're here for that item. If not, we'll skip it and then do the other items, and then when they show up, we can come back on it. So I don't see anybody raising their hand. We'll skip item 9 from now if there's no objection from the committee members.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. And then we will go from item 9 and go to item number 10. This is the same one. So this is the same thing they were requesting of the, oh no, excuse me, this is different. Discussion and possible action on community impact statement and presentation with the Arroyo Seco greening projects. So Diego, I know you were working on this one. Is the presenter here?
Yes, Tim Brick is from the Arroyo Seco Foundation. He will be presenting briefly. He just rose his hand.
So let me just move him over to panelists, and then we'll give him.
Vincent, also I have a hard time turning on my video, so Tim might need that for his presentation.
Okay. Will he need to share screen?
Yeah, if possible.
Okay, let me just make you into a co-host. Give me 1 second. Okay, Tim, made you into a co-host. You should have been prompted.
Okay. And there we go. Hey, well, I'm very pleased to be here with you this evening to talk with you about the Arroyo Seco and some issues that directly relate to Lincoln Heights and your community. I'm the managing director of the Arroyo Seco Foundation, which is an organization that really started more than 100 years ago with Charles Lummis, who had the house at Avenue 43, LLA Saul, and was really an early pioneer of the Los Angeles area. And the Arroyo Seco is the canyon, the Great Canyon. I mean, we hear the name all the time, and I think a lot of people might wonder what it really is. And it's actually the Great Canyon and stream that links the San Gabriel Mountains all the way down to downtown Los Angeles. And the confluence where the Arroyo Seco joins the LA River is right there, right basically where the freeways come together, the 5 and the 110. Or another way of looking at it is just kind of right across from Elysian Park there. And I wanted to talk with you today about the importance of water and the hydrology and the natural setting of East Los Angeles, because there's a program that's been put in place by the LA Bureau of Sanitation, which is really sucking up the dry weather flow of a lot of the streams and springs that once characterized Los Angeles, Northeast Los Angeles in particular. And they began a program a few months ago in which they're taking the dry weather flow from some of these streams and they're putting it into the sewer system, and they're transporting the flow all the way across Los Angeles over to Hyperion, and they're putting it out into the Pacific Ocean. And I'd like to show you some slides. I have some slides. Now, this largely focuses on Sycamore Grove Park in Highland Park there. And but there are actually 5 different sites, and one of them is on Mission right there as it enters the LA River, and there's 2 of them on kind of the arts side, the art center, the art side of the LA River in downtown LA. So, but let's start with if we could quickly go through these to give you a sense of what Sycamore Grove Park was like in the old days before the channelization. And there was a lovely stream. This was really a park where everybody gathered together. Mission Park's the same way. People used to gather together there from all over Los Angeles in order to rest and recreate and to enjoy a little bit of nature. And they actually had a stream running right through that park. And in 1939, they took that stream and they put it into a channel and they buried it. And now nobody realizes that the stream is still there, but it's 20 feet below the park. So this is a historic view of Highland Park and what it was like and how the streams came together in Highland Park. And it was really a very important part of LA's history and the development of kind of the first suburb, if you will, of Los Angeles. The North Branch was the name of the stream that drained basically all of Highland Park. And it was the major urban tributary of the Arroyo Seco. So there's in the mountains where the Arroyo Seco starts, there's actually 14 tributaries of, canyons that feed into the mountain part of the Arroyo Seco. But then as it comes out of the mountains between Pasadena and Altadena and La Cañada there, and then it moves through South Pasadena. When it gets down into Northeast Los Angeles, this was really the big tributary. And there's been programs going on that really it's important that the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council should be a part of. There's been a program going on for 20 years, as a matter of fact, in which the Corps of Engineers has been doing an Arroyo Seco ecosystem restoration study. And it really hasn't come to much so far, except doing a big study. So now the County of Los Angeles is talking about taking over that project. And they're looking at the Arroyo Seco in Los Angeles and saying, what are going to be the best spots for stream restoration in the Arroyo Seco in Los Angeles? And certainly one of the best is in Sycamore Grove Park there, with the North Branch, as you can see, draining into Sycamore Grove Park. And it's been the subject of lots of studies that have gone on that have identified it as really a priority site for stream restoration. Now, you've probably heard a lot about LA River revitalization and LA River restoration. Well, the Arroyo Seco is really a key part of the LA River. And in terms of the kind of most famous denizens of the Arroyo Seco, it had to be the Steelhead. So if you've heard about Steelhead and Trout on the Los Angeles River system, the Arroyo Seco was probably the most important stream on the Los Angeles River system, in which these wonderful trout who would live in the mountains and then they'd go out to the ocean. So they lived in both saltwater and freshwater, and they would go back and forth between the mountains and the ocean through Northeast Los Angeles up to the San Gabriel Mountains. And there actually used to be trout in Sycamore Grove Park. But when they channelized it and they put it into the box culvert underneath the park, everybody forgot about it. Now, if you go there today, you can still see the stream and where it comes into the Arroyo Seco. If you walk out on the pedestrian bridge near Avenue, a little bit north of Avenue 43, they're actually right by Sycamore Grove Park. And you can see, you turn around and you'll see where the Arroyo Seco comes into, whether the North Branch rather comes into the Arroyo Seco there. So it's really quite a remarkable place. And there were, wonderful scenes like this of young children playing in the pond. They had a lily pond there. And this quote over here on the right side is from actually Charles Elder, who was an early pioneer of Northeast Los Angeles. And he said some pretty remarkable things in this little statement, in which he talks about how there was a great stream of water flowing even in the driest seasons, and it was full of mountain trout and catfish, even as far north as York Boulevard. And he talks about finding, some pretty hefty fish up there in that area. And it's really a testament to how important it was, and the wonderful love of nature and of the streams and the springs that really characterized Northeast Los Angeles. This was another picture of the lily pond in Sycamore Grove Park. But they started their project a few months ago. The Bureau of Sanitation started their project. It's a $13.5 million project, basically to take that stream and to take the low flow of that stream, which means the flow that will occur 8 or 10 months a year, and put it into the sewer system. And they're going to pump it 30 miles west to the Hyperion plant near LAX, and then they'll treat it briefly and they'll put it out into the ocean. So, and they're saying that this is a great project. They're calling it the LA River and Arroyo Seco Low Flow Diversion Project. And the reason they're doing it is because the low flow during those dry months really captures a lot of the gunk, the urban gunk, the runoff, and tire rubber and asbestos and other stuff flowing, because they've really built a system. Instead of having a natural system of streams, they built a system that concentrates the pollution. And they call that a flood control system. So here, there's 5 projects that are really part of their low flow diversion project. And the North Branch is one of them. I focused on it because of its potential for real stream restoration. But there's also the 3 projects down here, in addition to the one on the Sycamore Grove project, which they refer to as the Figueroa Street diversion project. Then they have one at Villa Marisol, and they also have one at Rose and Mission and Palmetto. And Mission, of course, is right there by the LA River. And Rose and Palmetto are both on the kind of the arts district side of the Los Angeles River in downtown. But you can see from this, let me go back here if I could. Hang on just a second, please. Page up. Because we focused on this because on the Figueroa one at Sycamore Grove Park, because of its real potential for stream restoration. And Northeast Trees, which Diego is associated with, actually did a project 15 years ago in which they had a wonderful project called Stream Spirit Rising, which really educated the community about the nature of the natural hydrology of that area and how important it was. So the Arroyo Seco Foundation is committed to trying to bring steelhead back to the Los Angeles River. And we have some wonderful little videos on our site. I won't show them to you right now, but some of them are real cute and real quick. And they tell you about the history of steelhead in the Los Angeles River system and how important the Arroyo Seco is to that as well. So because the Arroyo Seco is really the first area where the steelhead coming up from the Pacific Ocean, say down in Long Beach or whatever, would actually come up and go to the mountains. And also the Arroyo Seco, because of the way that it's in the mountains and it gets real cold, the water gets real cold in the mountains, and that's what the fish are really looking for. So we've heard a lot of people that have been saying, oh, there's no fish in the mountains anymore. Well, this is our education director of the Arroyo Seco Foundation. His name is Angel Pinedo, and he is an instructor at Cal State Fullerton, and he's the education director of the Arroyo Seco Foundation. And there he is in snorkeling gear. And that's what we had to do in order to find the trout that are actually up in the mountains. And we've been able to find a lot of trout in the mountains by snorkeling. and going down and, with flashlights and taking video and such like that, and really establishing without a doubt that there really are trout in the mountains that could easily be coming into downtown Los Angeles. And as a matter of fact, there's a project going on in downtown Los Angeles, kind of right by, your community, which really is looking at restoring conditions in the LA River for native trout and steelhead. And that project is going basically from the end of the Glendale Narrows there near Elysian Park all the way down to Washington Boulevard in downtown Los Angeles. So it's going through, your part of town, Lincoln Heights, and they're actually looking at what they can do to reconfigure the channel in such a way that it would be beneficial for fish. So we're really trying to create a network of resting spots along the Arroyo Seco and the Los Angeles River. And the one in your area really is going to begin right there near Main Street. And they're actually going to do kind of a test area in order to reconfigure the channel and the nearby area there to create better conditions for fish. And it's a very exciting proposal, really, that they're now in the design phase. They're at 60% design, which is in an engineering sense is pretty far along in terms of really coming up with the plans as to how to reconform the river in that area. So very exciting kind of proposal that I hope that your neighborhood council will really get involved in. I want to point out that this kind of approach that we're talking about, natural stream restoration, is really an important part of modern 21st century water management. And it really, when it works well, it really establishes that it is based not just on trying to find water, but it's also based on inventing water management projects which deal with supply, but also with water quality, flood management, stormwater, and habitat restoration. And we could also add to that environmental justice to achieve regional goals and community benefits. These projects that they're doing to restore the LA River and such should have community benefits, and particularly for the communities like yours that the river flows through. So this is really from the Association of California Water Agencies, which is kind of the old guard of water developers in the state of California. And their policies say that therefore integrated approaches, which should incorporate all of these different benefits to the community when they do projects. And so even recreational benefits and access to the river and other kinds of things like that should be part of that program. And they say it's really integral to California's comprehensive water management planning. So you're on the right track. Now, we went and asked the Bureau of Sanitation when we first heard about this project. See, nobody heard about the project. I've not met anyone, not one person so far, who heard about the project before the construction actually began on the project. And they released what they call a negative declaration, which is kind of a shortcut on the environmental process last summer, or about a year ago, actually. And when they did, it was actually in the summer of 20. They actually released it briefly, and they didn't notify anybody about it. And, we'd been working with the Bureau of Sanitation, so we were quite surprised to see them moving ahead with this under construction. And we asked, when and where was the public meeting or the online meetings for the project? And they haven't answered these questions. I asked them these questions in September, and I've asked them over and over again, and they just don't answer them. They just ignore it. And why was the community not properly informed of this project and the 5 different spots that are going to be affected by the project? And what was the pollution reduction that each site was intended to achieve, and provide documentation for that, which they haven't provided documentation for. So, we just kind of wonder, why are they doing it? So, it's kind of like with the Bureau of Sanitation, so they have a sewer, so therefore let's put the stream in the sewer. No, that's not right. Streams do not belong in the sewers. We need to be restoring the natural hydrology of the area so that we can educate people about the value of water resources. And we can use nature-based solutions really to educate the community about how important water is to the future. And in the era of climate change, that's particularly important to do, because we need to stop, taking away from people their awareness of their natural setting. We've destroyed the natural setting by putting streams like this in pipes and culverts underground that nobody can see, and nobody knows. If you ask anybody, oh, do you know about any streams in this area? I can tell you that that part of East Los Angeles and Northeast Los Angeles was full of streams and springs, and they've all been buried and they've all been hidden. And I think it's time to say that the people that plan these systems is that they need to integrate them better. They need to evaluate what is the impact on people, but also on fish and wildlife, that they have destroyed all of these streams. So it's really a very important part of creating a resilient future, as we say, for the future. So, you know, we wondered, why weren't we informed of it? Why wasn't the community groups informed? And we asked, you know, has Los Angeles really moved away from a commitment to integrated water management? Again, I have not gotten any answers to these questions from the Bureau of Sanitation. So the two council people that are particularly involved in this discussion, you know, we have a petition going. We've got 750 people have signed the petition. It's on the Arroyo Seco website, www.arroyoseco.org. And so, you know, we're setting up meetings with Councilman Cedillo and Councilman De Leon to discuss this, because there's a better way to do this, really, than to just put the stream system in sewers. So there's a model that comes from Pasadena that we worked with the city of Pasadena to do, and it's Berkshire Creek, in which there was an area that really had been affected by too much water coming during flood periods and such like that. And Caltrans had diverted stream flow off of the freeway into this area, and it had really degraded the stream. So we created a real beautiful riparian area through there that prevents flooding and erosion and has kind of a bypass, so that the flood problem is really dealt with effectively. So, and this is a stretch that's maybe, you know, I would say half a mile long, and it was dedicated just about a little over a year ago, and it really is looking spectacular. And it's the kind of example that could be done fairly quickly and fairly easily by the Bureau of Sanitation. This is the kind of stream restoration project that many organizations that have looked at this area have looked at in the past. So there is a possibility for recreating beautiful natural stream areas like this throughout East Los Angeles and Northeast Los Angeles, because of the vital water resources that have exhibited there in the past. So we want to get the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Association or Neighborhood Council into this planning process, looking at how do we do environmental restoration throughout our community, and how do we bring back the natural hydrology of the area, and how do we view this as a tremendous educational program for the youth of today and for future generations. And so with that, this is the information about how to contact the Arroyo Seco Foundation, www.arroyoseco.org. And if you want to know more about the Sycamore Grove project specifically, we have a special webpage on that, which has a lot of information. It has a lot of information about the streams and springs that used to be in that area and what the natural hydrology of the area is like. We also have a petition which more than 750 people have signed. So we would urge you to join us in signing the petition. And it'd be great if you could come up with one of these, what do we call it, CIS,
Community impact statement.
That's what it is. That's what it is. I couldn't think of what the phrase is, but a community impact statement about this, which would really encourage the city of Los Angeles and the Bureau of Sanitation and the city council and all of these people to really take, you know, nature-based solutions to these problems that really have a lot of community benefits as well, and to stop burying the streams and to stop putting them into, you know, sewers. So thank you so much for your time, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. And let me also say that I'd like to, at some point in the future, do a more complete study on the fish program that's going on, the fish passage program, we call it, that's going on the LA River, basically from the bottom of the Glendale Narrows plan, the area there, which is just north of the confluence of the Arroyo Seco and the LA River, and it goes down to Washington Boulevard. I'd like to do a more complete presentation on that program, because they're beginning to ask for implementation money, and it's time that the community really learn more about that program, because it's really a very exciting program to restore a lot of the natural character and resources of that area. So thanks so much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Tim. Let me see if you can end sharing, and then, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There's committee members. We'll start with the community first if they have any questions, and then we'll allow committee members to ask questions if they have any. So if there's anybody in the public that wishes to ask Tim a question on the presentation, you can do so by pushing *9 or using the little hand icon. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'll turn it back to the committee. Is there anybody in the committee? Diego?
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Tim, for presenting. I really appreciate taking the time to inform our community about the Arroyo Seco and its future. My question to you is, have you talked to other neighborhood councils within the
Yes.
immediate area, and what has
Yes.
their response been?
Well, just last night I talked to the Arroyo Seco. No, last night it was the Historic Highlands Neighborhood Council, and they're preparing a resolution to take to their board next week, supporting our petition and basically our program. The Arroyo Seco Neighborhood Council has also approved a letter that they sent to Councilmember Cedillo with regard to the project. Councilman Cedillo has promised us that we're going to have a meeting soon with him in order to discuss this. So we're very pleased to see that. And we're also working with the Highland Park Heritage Trust. So we're working with a lot of the community organizations in Northeast Los Angeles and East Los Angeles. And it's good to see you, Diego. And I'm really glad that you're here, and that and I'd like to say that Northeast Trees really did a project way back in 2004 at which they looked at Sycamore Grove Park and they said, hey, let's restore the stream in this area. And it was a tremendously exciting community program that they had a parade, and people dressed up in costumes, and it was really a terrific kind of thing. And we actually, on our website, if you look on our website, you can find some videos from that point of time, that period of time, about the long desire of the community for a real, more natural approach to stream hydrology and water resources.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those. I was actually 5 at the time, so I had never ever seen those that work before. So it was really helpful to see that. Truly inspiring. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That.
And then I have a risk. I don't see anybody else's hand up, and I can't raise mine. But Tim, I worked on some of these projects, especially with the state, and this is how far back it goes. State Department of Fish and Game, now it's Department of Fish and Wildlife.
That's right.
And we've seen a lot of what the streams, had issues, and how they closed them off and dammed them off, right? And we
Yes.
knew that a lot of times the reason why they did that was because of the projects that were upstream. And of course, they looked at the hydrology always from a negative perspective, which is drainage, not
That's
really
right.
how they would connect in the city. But that also made a huge problem north of us as they undo these dams and they're pushing the water. They're using them as exit points, right?
Yes.
Because we're draining a lot of these areas out that have contaminants. So I think
Yeah.
one of the biggest problems, I think, challenges is the water that's in there with the concept that you're putting forth, right? Is how will we be able to clean it through that filter? Now, naturally, the city sells it as the natural biofilter, Mother Earth. We all know what we've all have done to the earth, right? It's no longer as clean as we think it would, or would it even work the same way in certain areas? I know definitely in LA, too many contaminated areas, right? And pockets of cross contamination. That was always our concern in the prior studies of it, was how would it come down and flow? Because we have the concept of the old way it flowed, right? It was natural. Came from the mountains, and then it came on the ground and straight into the river, out into the ocean. Now it's coming through all these places, and it's wrong for the city. And I've always blamed the city for bad planning on this, because we never thought that those things would ever be opened up, let alone consider them for whether it's sport fishing or putting trout, right? We know that trout are very delicate. I know because we raised them up in the Fillmore State Fish Hatchery for years, putting them in lakes, and I was surprised that they even swam in some of our local lakes.
Yeah.
But the program was there for it's still going on to this day. So I think, it's an exciting project, but I think we really got to get more in depth of the cause and effect and why they're throwing that water into the sewer lines, because I think that's why we're missing a lot of those tests and why those declarations are put out to bypass them, because it's obviously a water quality control issue, as it is in the river. It's all water quality control. And that's another, huge thing about the river. We want to restore it, but at the same time, everything that's known to every chemical known to the human race is in that river, right? After the flow, the
Yeah.
dry runoff. So, it's complex, but I'm on the same plan of how do we get it to
Yeah.
a point where it's clean. And sometimes we come to this thing and where the state has this mitigation. So now we're not going to get it clean, 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 clean. But where is middle ground of clean? And then once we find that, which I think right now the state hasn't even found yet, because they often move the grading of water, right, up and down just to pass certain things. But once we find that middle ground, there has to be a complete study on it, on the cause and effects on humans, the consumption of fish, if we're going to allow it to be sport fishing to the end. And that can take, as you well know, it can take time. And it's sad because we should have done this decades ago, you know? But
Well,
I'm definitely interested to see how these projects play out in today.
you're asking very key questions, and it would take, a long time to go into all of the concerns. But let me just say briefly that the flood control, and the other issue besides water quality, which you're absolutely right, that's critical. The other issue is flood protection. So both of those were really the reason that they did. And so they built a flood control system. But to be a little bit simple about it, the flood control system became really, kind of an alternate sewer system. So the flood control system was a system that brought together all of the contamination. So, if there was a more natural approach, the earth in bioswales and other kinds of things, natural wetlands and things like that would have cleaned a lot of that water going into, and you wouldn't have the same kind of problem. So part of the problem is the flood control system itself has been established to concentrate all of the pollution. And, it's interesting that you bring that up because, we're working with, we're applying, as a matter of fact, we have an application that we just finished to the Wildlife Conservation Board to look at the mountain part of the Arroyo Seco and to look at the dams and all of the little flood control structures that are up in the mountains. If you've been hiking up there, you know that there's just all sorts of flood control systems up there. And it's a pretty amazing thing because those systems, first of all, they were all put in before there was any environmental evaluation. CEQA did not exist. The California Environmental Quality Act did not exist. The National Environmental Policy Act did not exist. So there was never any real look at what's the impact of all of these facilities on fish and wildlife in particular. And so they built a dam, for instance, in the mountain part of the Arroyo Seco called Brown Mountain Dam. It's been there since 1942, and it pretty quickly filled up with sediment. And it's just, it's three miles up into the canyon, and it blocks all fish passage. And I found a report recently that looks at that, all of those facilities they built in the Front Range of the San Gabriel Mountains, and it was from 1960. And it said that as of 1960, the flood control program from the County of Los Angeles and the Angeles National Forest amounted to, wait, I hope you're seated, $500 million.
Yeah.
And that was in 1960 dollars. So if you inflated that to today's value today, it would be $5 billion. They spent $5 billion on all these things, and they didn't really assess what was going to be the impact on fish and wildlife. So as you point out, you're right. The program that I talked about, the integrated regional water management, is designed to meet the approach that you're talking about, in which we balance these various goals and we develop an integrated program that takes them all into account. And so natural restoration, and nature-based solutions and, urban best practices to capture stormwater and clean it up, really, and if it's necessary to clean up a stream like that, there are ways to do it, using some natural things like bioswales and urban best practices. But if necessary to clean it, there are ways that they could clean up the water right there and put the water back in the stream. And if they were doing that, we'd be saying like, oh, that's okay, that cleans up the stream and it helps the stream. But when they take that low flow and they just pump it out to the ocean, it doesn't help the stream at all. So there will be some benefit to the ocean in that it will reduce some of the pollution going into the ocean. But meanwhile, it's at the expense of destroying the stream. So really the goal of a lot of us who care about the environment in Southern California really is to try to restore the streams and the natural resources as much as possible, and to do it in a way that takes into account these other concerns like flood protection, water quality, but it also plugs in community benefit, and what does the community learn from this? And is the community able to enjoy the stream anymore? And I think that, one of the reasons that people, it really hurts people to not know about the natural character of their area. People become enriched when they learn about nature, and they learn about the trees and the birds and the bugs and the habitat and the wildlife that are really part of it. And LA is especially blessed of all the cities almost anywhere by an incredible amount of biodiversity. But when we put a small little stream into the sewer system, we're destroying the biodiversity. We're not feeding the biodiversity. So thanks for your insights. And we are looking into those kind of issues as well. And I think, we need to do a lot more work in the future to try to come up with a way in which we balance these needs for the future.
Definitely. I could see there's a lot of work, in the future. And that's why I think it's important. That's why our sustainability committee, we're going to be dedicated to stuff like this to really get it out, because I think it's the education component to it, right? But it's also the engagement of what we do to the resource and how do we treat it at the end.
That's right.
Right? Because
That's
leave
right.
it up to government. We've already seen what they can do.
That's right.
And that's why it's important for people to engage. But Diego, you have another question?
No, not a question, just a comment. But I do want to invite the rest of the board to ask a question for Tim if they have any.
Yeah, we'll open it up. Nancy, Melanie, any question for Tim? I don't see their hands up.
Hi.
Oh, there's Nancy. Okay.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to thank you so much for your presentation.
Well, thank you, Nancy.
Likewise, that was incredibly informative. Thank you so much.
Well, that's great. And like I said, I'd be glad to come back in the future and talk about these issues. I really have a long experience in water resources. And just to let you know a little bit about it, I was on the Utility Commission in Pasadena for 18 years, way back when. And I was on the board of directors of the Metropolitan Water District, which is actually the nation's largest drinking water utility. I was on that board for 28 years, and I was chairman of it from 2006 to 2010. So I actually have a lot of background in terms of water resources development and water quality and other issues like that as well. And I'd love to share it with you, the neighborhood council, and the community in the future.
Thank you, Tim. Diego, did you want to make your comment?
Yeah, thank you. So I have a very long history with the Arroyo Seco itself. I mean, as a kid, I would literally play in the Arroyo Seco. I lived on Griffin Avenue before I was displaced, and I would jump the fence and literally kind of just swim in the Arroyo Seco, and
That's great.
that part of the Arroyo Seco was probably very dirty, and I probably shouldn't have been doing it, but that was, the only, apart from flat top, the only access I had to some semblance of nature, right? And so when I think about the Arroyo Seco, I really do think about the potential it has for our community. Our community sits right at the confluence of the Arroyo Seco and the LA River. And there's just so much potential for that to become a very dynamic and valuable green space for our community, for our future children of our community. I know our Lincoln Heights itself has so much trauma in regards to just gentrification, displacement. We're battling so many different things at once. And so it can be really challenging for community members to wrap their head around the value of the Arroyo Seco right now in the moment. But I would do anything in my power to support, some sort of restoration of the Arroyo Seco as it was before, just because I know the value that it will have for a community once it's available. And so I would really love to make a motion to draft a CIS statement in opposition to the Arroyo Seco diversion project. So yeah, that's my comment.
Okay. So with that, what we can do, because we can't discuss it now because it's not on our agenda, what we can do is draft up one. So Diego, if you want to work with Tim to draft up what a CIS would look like from the committee so that the committee can, vet it through. We can have a first draft of it before we submit it to the general board. We can add that to our next agenda and then have a discussion on it, right? And then let the public participate in it, so we can announce that too, that we'd be drafting up a community impact statement for the Arroyo Seco project, and then possibly maybe have Tim come back on just to if we get new people that have more questions on it, and then draft that letter and get it through the process, right? So it's out of committee and it's moving its way up to the general board for final approval. So
That sounds good to me.
Okay, so then we'll put you as point person with Tim to work on the project for community.
Are you okay with that, Tim?
That's great. That's great. That's wonderful. That's exactly the kind of action that we need at this time. So thank you so much. And thank you for your recollection of what it was like to play in the Arroyo.
Okay, Tim, thanks a lot. And I don't see any more questions from our committee members, but we appreciate you for your presentation and your time. And we'll be seeing you in the near future.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So then what we'll do next is close item. We were on item, let me 1 second, 10. We'll move to item 11. Discussion on using Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council Improvement Grant for possible greening project. Diego, you had a question about this, right? That's why we put it onto the agenda.
Yeah. So I've actually been working with the Lincoln Heights Youth Art Center. We're trying to figure out a way to create a native plant garden there. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the space. And I had a preliminary meeting with them as a representative for the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council, just to figure out what their needs are, what that project would look like. The challenge is they are, they're not a nonprofit. They're a department of the city. They're under the Department of Cultural Affairs for the city of Los Angeles. And so they themselves, I don't think or believe that they can apply for funding through the council. So how could we potentially work around that?
Yeah, that's because they have their own funding system in there, even if they're not funded as a group, right? But because they're under the umbrella of that, I don't think the council would be able to sponsor the event. I mean, there could be possibly a co-sponsorship, but right now the city has us on no co-sponsorships because we can't be out in public. It possibly would have to wait, but it would have to be before June because our fiscal year ends in July, right? And usually June, the last week of June is the last week where we could apply for these particular grants. So that would be the issue on this particular project, right? Like if there was any, because of its affiliation with the city. But if there was other parts in the neighborhood, that had something similar, that would be a 501c3 for them to obtain the funding, that would be possible. And I think what we should do is create at least a mini flyer for our community improvement, because it really would go to anything, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily greening, but any project can get it, right? That's going to improve the community, and that we can probably bring it in here to the sustainability committee to review some of the projects, right? So maybe they can come in, and if we get any word that the city's going to lift the Zoom and that we can engage with the public on a co-sponsorship, then maybe at that time we can work with them and have them come in and really require that each person that comes in for the grant has a small, outline of what the project is. Doesn't have to be huge, right? We don't want them to get overwhelmed and discourage them, but something very simple, like what will it serve? Who will it serve, right? What's the purpose, and what would the project have, and what's the outcome goal, right? So just maybe we can make a questionnaire with just 5 or 6 questions and have them fill it out and present it, so that way we get an idea more or less of what the project's like, and then we can approve the projects and then send them up to the executive and into the general board for approval. And I think that way the public can engage and we can engage with them to ask, certain questions on how the project's going to work.
So what you're telling me then is that there is a potential for them to directly receive the funds from the council. It's just there has to be some sort of process with the city.
Yeah, if we do a co-sponsorship, they don't get the money themselves because they couldn't because of the city. What happens is that, like, I'm the treasurer, right? So let's say we approve this and everything is good to go. They would have to give me a list of everything that they need, and then I would have to go down physically and purchase it. They would have to
Got
bring
it.
it to me, yeah, and I would have to, give it to them. So that's what, and that's only if the city approves it. But usually that's what the co-sponsorship works like, and that's because as long as I have the receipts, I can report it to the city, right? Where
Yeah,
the
got
average
it.
person doesn't have it, but the general board has to agree to the co-sponsorship, and then the price tag that's on that, right? The funding. So we got to get a packet. There's a little packet to fill out with it. And there has to be a component for the neighborhood council to have an outreach table there, and it must be on all five. There's a couple of requirements that it has with co-sponsorship. So we have to be part of the advertisement. We have to have the ability to have a outreach there, and what else? I know I'm forgetting something. But yeah, it's a packet. That's basically what's in there.
Okay. Okay, so then maybe what I'll do is approach them again, have them come onto a sustainability committee meeting, and they can talk about the project and what the need is, and then what the potential value could be to the community. And we can go from there and maybe creating some sort of co-sponsorship with them.
No, that's good. Yeah, I think that's a good starting, so that in the event, if the COVID thing gets, we've relieved of it, right? Then they're already a couple of steps ahead of the game.
And just another question in regards to this, because I also definitely agree with you on your first point in that we should create a flyer, just outreaching on like that this is a resource for the community and that they should be soliciting our support as a council, because I know for a fact that most people don't really realize that we have funding for community improvement projects. But the point is gosh, where was I going? Oh dear, it's a long day, I'm sorry. Anyways, yeah, I'll
The
get them.
flyer, Diego, the flyer.
Yeah, sorry, yes, to create a flyer. That sounds like one of our action items. The other one will be that they come to the meeting, and just preliminarily, that property is co-managed with Recreation and Parks. So it's the Department of Cultural Affairs and Recreation and Parks.
Okay.
So would they also need to be with like on the table to create, some sort of co-sponsorship?
No, the organization or their group, they would have the letter of intent, right? So they would have to work together with each other, get approval from both agencies before they approach us with it, right? Because
Got it. Okay.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure they'll work together. City agencies pretty much work together, especially if they're part of it. And that way, when they approach us, it's been already pre-approved by them, right?
Got it. Okay.
That way, we're just waiting on our end if we're able to do co-sponsorships.
Got it. And then is the community improvement funding separate from the neighborhood purpose grant? Because they do have a nonprofit that has kind of served as a fiscal sponsor that could apply for funding as well.
Yes, it is. It is different. It's the same process. The requirements are just different.
Okay.
But it's pretty much the same application on it.
Okay. So it sounds like there may be two different avenues then. A co-sponsorship with the council,
if they have a
nonprofit.
nonprofit now, we've opened it up for them to submit their MPGs, which is the neighborhood purpose grant, and then those will be taken up in the grant committee, and then whichever system they use to pick and choose which ones will get ahead, that meet all the city requirements and that they meet their state requirements of a 501c3, then those would be sent up to the executive committee and onto the general board for discussion.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, Diego, thank you. And so, yeah, I mean, and just that, I mean, it was just a simple discussion on the projects and for community grants. And so just like we said, they're opened up. So anybody in the public that has a 501c3, and even our community members now, or committee members or board members, anybody on the neighborhood council can also look around to check, because we do have that community partnership or community, I just said it and I lost it. See, we can basically sponsor it through the neighborhood council. So if we see the need in our community for an improvement or greening, it could be a bench, something that's within the $5,000 limit, then we also too can suggest it through the council that we should take on those issues, and then find a community partner which can then execute it, right? As they do the outreach, we can do the funding and do all the city permitting for it, but they would have to do the community outreach, which we can be part of, but it's required in the partnership. So it's something to look through. And what I'll do is I'll send everybody the packets so that they can have on record, and then you guys can read the rules and regulations of what the difference of the community partnership is to what the MPG is to what the community improvement grants are. Is there any questions? I'll ask the public first. If you guys have any questions, you can push *9 or raise your little hand. I'm not seeing any. Do the committee members have any questions? Okay, not seeing any. So we'll move on away from closing item 11 and opening item 12, discussion and possible action on future sustainability committee agenda items. So this is just open to the committee members. Are there any suggestions from anybody any items that you would like to see maybe on the next month or in the future that we should tackle? Okay, so Diego? I saw Diego on mute.
Sorry, I may be jumping the gun, but I really do want to make the Sustainability Committee, as it's named for now, to become, some sort of outlet to really empower a community. And I've really been toying around with the idea of trying to find some sort of city-owned property that could become a community garden for Lincoln Heights. We don't have a community garden. Virtually every other community around us has one, and our community has such a rich history with growing our own food. Like, if you take any walk anywhere in Lincoln Heights, you'll see people growing their own food, like literally in the most liminal spaces in between the houses. And I just really do see the value in having a community garden space. So I don't know if that could become a potential agenda item in the future, to identify city-owned lots that we could talk to some sort of council district or someone to open it up as a community garden space. But I would welcome that as a future action item.
For sure. No, I think it's important. I think we can open up to just start looking around. And that's what these agenda items do. They're designed for us to just have the basic discussion like we did now, and then to really start assigning little work orders to go out by all the committee members, but also to the public can engage with us too, right? Like, let's go look for the city-owned properties, and then from there, you always got to work with the water, and then there has to be a fiscal sponsor, right? Like, we probably as a council could sponsor periodically a certain amount, and then that would have to be approved by the council. But just like any political office, it's like we only have 4 years. So the question is to sustain it, right? That's the big part. Like, would it be after 4 years, would it be sustained still? So stuff like that is something to look at when they do those projects, because I was part of the one in Compton, and that huge one was the largest one. It was the nicest one I ever been part of, right? But at the same time too, these things were put in, so we definitely need to hammer those out, get an idea and a concept, and then apply it, right? So yeah, it could be definitely an item down the road that we can discuss. But I think any one of us on the committee, including our general board and even the public, this council itself or committee is designed to have these discussions in open public. So if anybody wishes, they can easily send it to me, Diego, Nancy, or Melanie, any item, and then we would consider it. And if there's anything that has a procedural to it, like the neighborhood purpose grant or something, we would always review it just to make sure that you have all the right paperwork so that you don't waste your time, right? so that we can bring you on and either have the discussion and then later we can put it on for recommendation for funding, right? So Nancy, Melanie, any items you would like to see in the future?
I don't have any at the moment.
Okay.
But
No.
that was a wonderful idea, Diego. Thank you for that.
Yeah. thank you.
Agreed with Nancy. Thank you, Diego. And I think anything that we can do that, remembers that sustainability is really just the community and make sure that the community is involved in everything that we do. It's serving them and our habitat in some way. It's, that would be my focus.
Okay, so it sounds good to me. So, like I said, we're open. Send them to Diego, myself, Melanie, or Nancy. Any ideas or content you would like to see on the sustainability committee, and I'm pretty sure Diego and myself will dig around to get some more presenters and on more sustainable projects that are happening in our community and more of the current information. So keep an eye out, and we'll go from there. And I'm looking at the item number 9, the Raul letter of support. I don't see anybody here for it. So we continued and moved it down. And I'm probably going to continue it to the next meeting if there's no opposition from the committee members. No one opposes it to continue it to the next agenda. To the next sustainability committee. Okay, I don't hear any objections. So we'll continue that. So I'll make the motion for adjournment. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, just say aye.
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 Hi.
Okay, all opposed. We don't have no opposing. Congratulations, everyone. We did the meeting. I want to thank the public for being here. It is 7:08 official and the meeting ended. And good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Night.
All right. The first meeting. We did it.
Through.
Yeah, we did it. Pretty good for
No,
the first
it's
time.
good. They'll roll faster after this,
Yeah.
It just keeps going and it don't stop until you look back and you're 4 years ahead.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, everyone. You guys are good. Everyone made it today, so that's good.
Yeah. Cool. I'll send in the minutes for review. So for the minutes, I draft them up. Do they get approved as an agenda item for the next subcommittee meeting?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And if you don't get them by this time, as long as we get them on, we can just approve them as we go along.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And then I'm gonna see if this recorded straight to the thing. And if it did, I'll just send you the recording. And well, you've written minutes before. They don't gotta be like super accurate and all that stuff, but you just do your best on it and we're good to go.
Yeah, I'm just gonna copy how Sarah has formatted the minutes. I think she has figured out how to do it really well. So
okay, sounds good then. Thank you, Diego.
Thank you, Vincent. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.